Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday, and that means Friday Reads, where we talk about what we've read recently, what we are currently reading, what we are looking to read soon, all that sort of stuff. A thoroughly bookish check-in video. I wanted to make one of those for today, show you some of the things that I've been reading, some of the things that I plan on reading. One thing is by Leslie Charteris. This is a Saint novel about his character, the Saint. I 2025, I did a lot of reading vaguely crime, espionage, or thriller type books in series. I did a lot of that. I started out with Nero Wolfe, the Rex Stout Nero Wolfe novels. Then I moved on from there to a whole bunch of other people, and I've been slowly working my way through all of those. And one of them was the Saint, this character of the Saint that might be familiar to some of you who are bitterly old from the TV show with Roger Moore. But I wanted to read the novels, which turns out the novels are a hoot. They are amazing fun. And that's not true for this one. I read a Vendetta for the Saint, where you're told at the bottom there's the first Saint adventure in 20 years. I don't know what's going on here. I don't really know anything about Leslie Charteris. I don't know anything about the bibliography of the Saint novels. This is a story about Simon Templar, the Saint. He's popularly known as the Saint because he's this weird, almost legendary figure in the realms of crime and crime detection. This figure who can slip in and out of places, who seems intent on stealing from the rich and giving to the poor and whatnot. Seems larger than life. And Charteris very much wonderfully, playfully writes him that way. These books were, if I ever read a Saint novel back when the Saint TV show was on, I must have just thought of the TV show instead of the books. The TV shows are humorless. They sometimes wanted to have humor, but no, it didn't work. Whereas the books are wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And in this novel, the Saint just happens to be in Italy when he just happens to encounter a long-standing feud between a normal guy and the mafia. This is essentially the Saint versus the mafia. And it didn't read like any of the other novels that I've read. I mean, towards the end of the series, as I was reading them in order, I've been trying to read all these books in order, and after I'd read a dozen Saint novels, I could tell that Charteris's powers might be fading, that his heart might not be completely in it. Might think, I've got income streams coming to me from elsewhere, but it might be time for a new Saint novel anyway, because I've got, a patio to refinish or something like that. And sometimes in those later books you can tell. After like number 10 or number 12, you can tell. That's even a little bit possible to tell in Nero Wolfe, and certainly in Lou Archer. Less so here, but this felt like a big dropping off. It was good. It was enjoyable because I had so much time and effort invested in the character and the world of the Saint. But it was a disappointment, and I don't know how many more I have to go. Like I say, I've been very content in 2025 to go at these things from the ground level, just as a person finding them in a bookstore, rather than what I usually do. The killjoy thing I usually do is to go up to 30,000 feet, read every biography, read as many critical treaties as I can, and then read the books. Instead, I decided just to go at these things like I was a goblin. Oh, there's a new Nero Wolfe novel. Oh, give me that. That's been immensely fun. But it does mean that I'm blundering around blind. I stopped blundering around blind with Nero Wolfe once I was well into the series. Then I wanted to know everything. I didn't want to read any Rex Stout biographies. But I wanted to know everything about the series. I wanted to know everything about all of its fans and all the stuff that they've written about it. I want to know a little bit of the inclinabula of the whole series, but I haven't done that with the Saint yet, so I don't really know what explains Vendetta for the Saint. Maybe this was just an off book. Okay, then we have a new release that I read. This is We Did Okay, Kid, a memoir by Anthony Hopkins. That was bad. It wasn't bad in the sense of a reading experience. It was a good reading experience about an eventful life in the theater, on stage and on film. It was, an eventful life that's not over. Anthony Hopkins is still taking work, and doing good work. I even kind of sort of liked him in The Two Popes. I wasn't quite sure what he was going for in the Two Popes, but maybe that was the point. Maybe he was intentionally being a little opaque and baffling in that show because that's how he was to his successor. Maybe that was the point. But when you have a celebrity memoir like this, you are going to have certain givens. There will never be one that doesn't have those givens. Almost never. A memoir will almost always have these givens. Now, it's not true with diary entries or with collected letters. There you might get closer to the person. But with memoirs, there will be certain givens. First of all, the celebrity did not write it. The celebrity did not write it. If you drive to Niantic, Connecticut, and you go to the Mighty Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut, a gigantic used book complex, you will see a koi pond, you will see cats, you will see lots of buildings with lots of outside sculptures, and there's also a little petting zoo of goats. And you can pay a little bit to get a little bit of food and see if you can lure them over so that they can take the food from your hand and maybe take a picture with them and the kids. And those goats have the rough equivalent IQ of not just some, but every Hollywood star. That's about how smart they are. About as smart as those goats in that book barn petting zoo. So they did not write their own memoir. Okay, if we could dispense with that, that would be great. They did not write their own memoir. They cannot read their own memoir. So they did not. That's given number one, is that the celebrity didn't write the memoir. Given number two is that the memoir is going to be self-aggrandizing. That is obvious even here in the self-serving title of the book, where the only person that is worth talking to is him. He's talking to himself, and we're saying we did okay because he knows that the whole world is showering accolades on him. So they will think even more accolades are in honor if he's being faux humble. If you actually said to Anthony Hopkins, to Sir Anthony, if you actually got to him at a film event or on the set of a movie and said, in response to his request to evaluate his career, you did okay, he'd have someone throw something at you. He is not humble. They are not humble. They are weird creatures who have had a whole coterie of people existing, drawing a paycheck solely to tell them yes, to say the word yes to anything that comes out of their mouth, and they've had that since they were at the latest 30. And Anthony Hopkins is like 100. That's 70 years of everyone around him instantly, vociferously validating every single thought that he has of any kind, of anything. So I do a doodle on a piece of paper. You get real artistic talent, Sir Anthony. Really, you do. I wouldn't say it if it weren't true. This belongs in the Louvre. So that you're going to get that. First of all, I didn't write it. And second, you're going to get the self-aggrandizing. It's going to happen right away. It happens here in the title. And third is that it's all going to be sanded down, especially if it's still a working actor. You're not going to step on any toes. It's not going to be anything like what you really feel about any of this, which always makes me wonder what the point of writing a memoir is if you're going to do this. Politicians do the same thing. What's the point of writing a memoir? Aside from money, of course, the point is money. This is going to sell. And it's guaranteed to get effusively praised by people who've liked Anthony Hopkins movies. That is not a criticism of the book. But good luck trying to get a critic to see that. But aside from money, I've never understood the point. Why write a memoir obviously at the end of your life? Anthony Hopkins is not going to be alive in 10 years. Why do that? And only in order to do this, to have everything vetted by lawyers and PR people. Why? Why do that? I guarantee you that if Anthony Hopkins at this age, hey kid, if Anthony Hopkins at this age tottered onto the stage of Dick Cavett's show, and when Dick Cavett was in his prime, and could seem like he's not there at all, but really he's getting incredible heart-wrenching confessions out of you that you've never told anyone else, that you legitimately haven't told anyone else. And it's live. A lot of times it was live, so there was no way for you to take it back, no way for your PR people to swoop in. I guarantee you, if this Anthony Hopkins tottered onto that stage, he would have opinions about a lot of people, and a lot of directors, a lot of actors that aren't in here. This is just, here's the string that I came to Hollywood with. Here are the two pennies that I didn't have to rub together. I'm sure it is already being praised in all quarters. I have seen this happen a number of times. It is somehow comforting. I've never quite understood why, but it's somehow comforting for most people out in the world to think that their celebrities are people instead of the goats at the petting zoo of the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut. Somehow, that seems comforting. You want them to be rounded people. And if you're a bookish person, you want them to read. They don't read. They don't read. But they aren't even able to read. They have had a cadre of people yes-manning them since they were 18 years old. Can you imagine what kind of a monster you'd be if that were true? Anyway, I see it all the time. Jack Edwards. Fluffy-haired, snub-nosed, cute little Jack Edwards routinely asks celebrities nowadays, now that he's a megastar, he routinely asks celebrities what their favorite books are. And you can see the poor dears, they just, there's no flickering in the dead black on black eyes of these celebrities that he asks that to. They have a hard time even remembering what a book is. I'm really rather fond of. Anyway, we're going to move from there to an intensely bookish subject. This is Gerald Howard's biography of Malcolm Cowley, The Insider. This is about the great editor and literary poobah, now completely forgotten, Malcolm Cowley, who has much to answer for. I have my issues with him. I have always had my issues with him. Before Dude Bros came along, before Dude Bros were born, before they were invented, before Dude Bros were created by the slapdash, horrible, hippie non-parenting of their absentee, faint-ass fathers. When those fathers were dodging service in Korea and Vietnam, long before, they elevated Faulkner, for instance, above the sewer where his reputation belongs. Malcolm Cowley was elevating Faulkner in ridiculous terms. Just ridiculous hyperbole. Read Faulkner. It's not there. None of the stuff that he claims is there. None of the stuff that the Dude Bros claim is there, but they can be excused because they haven't actually read it. They're just repeating it because Faulkner seems like he hates women. And he does hate women. But that's why they love him. They haven't read him. They like his bona fides. Cowley had actually read him. He had no such excuse. And this is a biography of him from his, grotty teenage years, which again, I don't care about, to the decades when he bestrode the world of literary criticism, the book chat world, like a colossus. That is true. He was a towering figure. This is a long, long overdue book. And I don't know, maybe it's just that I have my bones to pick with Cowley himself as a person. That I loved the elements of this book that were about the literary world that he encountered and transformed. I loved those literary discussions. The biographical stuff, I didn't care two hoots about, even though I liked how it was done. So I don't know, that when I have a new release that provokes such an uneven reaction, where one half of what the book is trying to do I really liked, and the other half of what the book is trying to do I really hated, generally that means that when it comes out in paperback, I'm going to give it a reread and get a lot more settled reaction to it. But there were parts of it that I liked. Certainly there were. Then we have something that I have not read yet. I will be reading this this weekend. This is a Tom Clancy novel, but Tom Clancy is roasting in hell. He had no idea that this book existed, did not plot it, not anything like this. This is necrofiction. His publisher has continued the world of his literary creations, especially Jack Ryan, the humble CIA analyst from Hunt for Red October. I just read Red Winter, Mark Cameron's book Red Winter, that starred a young Jack Ryan in East Berlin. A historical novel, a flashback novel to Jack Ryan's younger days. But Jack Ryan goes on to become president. And I'm going to be, this is a new one. This is Executive Power. This is by Andrews and Wilson, a collaborative team, writing about President Jack Ryan, who does not do anything weird or unusual. He is in the Oval Office. He's in the Situation Room. But he has children. And this book stars two of his children, apparently. One of them, his youngest son, is with a diplomatic mission in Angola that is taken over, and they become hostages. And this, of course, is concerning for the president. One of his daughters is in the military and is looking to find out, get boots on the ground, find out what's going on. And from what I can tell, the plot just goes deeper from there. It's not just a simple question of what do the hostage takers want, because they might be bankrolled or even be other operatives than what they appear. So I imagine that the book will give us a lot of heroics from Jack Ryan's son, who's just begging to be cast in a Hollywood movie. We will see. When I read these President Jack Ryan novels, I tend to be more interested in Jack Ryan in Washington than I am in the field adventures that are always part of these novels. But the key thing with Mark Cameron, I had never read a Tom Clancy book by Mark Cameron. He's really good. There were a few problems, persistent problems with Red Winter, but Mark Cameron is really good at writing in this world. And of course, Mark Greaney I learned about in this world, and then I followed him to the Gray Man books, and he now has a flourishing career of his own, and I really like the Gray Man books. These two, Andrews and Wilson, I had never read before. So this will be my first time encountering them, see what kind of a job they do. Then we have a gigantic hardcover omnibus. I'm not sure that I will actually splurge for this thing. Although the issues do have a warm place in my heart. This is a gigantic hardcover omnibus of Marvel Team Up, with a less than good Gil Kane cover there that is... it's Spider-Man's fanny, and it's the Human Torch's fanny. There are all kinds of ways you could have done this same moment better. And Gil Kane must know that. I don't know why he did it this way. But this cover shows the Fantastic Four villain, the Sandman, who is breaking open an old wooden water tower in Manhattan and dousing the Human Torch and Spider-Man with water. It's... This is an omnibus reprinting, I think, the first 30 issues of Marvel Team Up, which in the 1970s was a full-color comic book from Marvel Comics where Spider-Man, their most popular character, teamed up with a different person every month to have an adventure of some kind or other. And I bought all those issues. A lot of them had gorgeous Gil Kane covers, but it was also interesting. It was interesting to see the guest stars outside of their normal environment. Like you normally see the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four. It'd be interesting to see him outside of it. There were also frequent guest stars who did not have books of their own, so you got to see them have a new adventure. If you were a big fan of them, then that would be a definite draw for the book. I got them. I liked a lot of them. The reason that the Marvel had two team-up books at the time, Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2-in-1. Marvel Team Up starred Spider-Man, and Marvel 2-in-1 starred the Thing from the Fantastic Four. And I think Marvel Team Up worked better than Marvel 2-in-1, because the Spider-Man is not just a kind of everyman, was at the time a kind of everyman superhero in terms of his personality, just an ordinary kid growing up in New York City boroughs, but also in terms of his superpowers. He can stick to walls. He has the web shooters that he can shoot webs. He's stronger than a normal person, but it's nebulous. He can be a little stronger or a little bit more than a little stronger, but he's not overwhelming. So he works well with any guest star, because the key to a team-up book is that it has to be something that Spider-Man couldn't do on his own. Otherwise, what's the point? That works with Spider-Man. That tends to work with Spider-Man, whereas the Thing is a combat veteran. He's the mainstay of the first and best Marvel super team of them all. He's seen 1 million hours of combat on and off Earth. He's invulnerable to physical harm, and he can lift 85 tons. So he's even more of an everyman than Peter Parker, but it's even harder to make an adventure in which any kind of guest star of his is needed. I liked both books. I bought both books, and both the back issues of both books, especially Marvel Team Up, are moldering to dust in my cardboard long boxes in the other room. They're too delicate almost even for me to read anymore. So reprints are wonderful. The e-books, e-comics are also wonderful. The things, I have the whole run of Marvel Team Up as an e-copy that is not vulnerable to physical damage at all, but there's something nice about turning the pages. And I don't know what kind of job Marvel will do with this omnibus, so I might spring for it. You never know. I know the issues. I know the issues really well. Anyway, let's move on. This next one is a recent read. I read this just this week, and it also is part of an ongoing series where I am reading everything in order, and I'm just systematically reading my way through it. In this case, not thrillers or crime fiction or anything, but Iris Murdoch. I'm winding up my read of Iris Murdoch. I finally got to The Green Knight, which I read when it came out and did not like. When this first came out, I read it and thought, okay, not only is this unbearably wordy, self-consciously wordy, but also the plot doesn't make any sense. And you, no matter how wordy you are, you can't word your way out of needing your plot to make sense. Half the stuff that's going on here would never happen in the real world, and yet this is set in the real world, despite the cover and despite the title. Title, of course, being an allusion to Sir Gawain in The Green Knight, and the book is too. In the great medieval poem Sir Gawain in the Green Knight, everyone in Camelot is making merry when a giant stranger shows up, a giant green stranger shows up, and says that he will be perfectly willing to take a blow from a knight of the Round Table if that knight will agree to receive a blow from him in a year's time, next Christmas. And Sir Gawain agrees and chops his head off, smugly assuming that that means I won't need to worry about receiving a blow from him. But then the Green Knight bends down, picks up his head, crooks it under his elbow, and walks off and says, I'll see you next year. And Gawain knows perfectly well that he can't pick up his head and move on. It will kill him. So the poem is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And this is a kind of take on that. One of the characters in this book very much wants to kill his half-brother, and he sets in motion to do that, and a stranger gets in the way and seems to die. But he doesn't die. And he wants to extract a price from his would-be killer and everyone around him. And in that sense, it was clever. Even when I read this the first, I forget when this came out, like in the 80s, something like that. Even when it's right at the end of Iris Murdoch's publishing career. There aren't many more books to go. So, and I let these go for a long time. So I was glad to get back to it. And I liked it a lot more than I did the first time. Still, the plot doesn't make much sense. It's a pretty clever take on Sir Gawain in the Green Knight. You know, where you've got this impossible challenge, this impossible debt that you cannot repay. The way that you would repay it is to die. I don't know. It still didn't really work for me. I liked it a lot more. I'm glad one of you sent it to me. I have a whole shelf of Iris Murdoch that one of you sent to me. But I'm glad that I read it. I didn't read it as an ebook. I read it in print and paper form, a trade paperback. I'm glad that I did, but it didn't blow me away. And some of my reread of Iris Murdoch has blown me away. Very much so. Then we have Elizabeth Kolbert. This is a new book. She wrote The Sixth Extinction that a lot of you probably read. This is her book, Life on a Little Known Planet. And it is... it's a lot of her occasional prose. The occasional prose that she's written in the last 2 years. So reviews, long discussions of things of the Anthropocene and the dispatches, as the subtitle says, from the Anthropocene, from the catastrophically changing planet that we all live on. I have read a lot of these already in wherever they were, the New York Review of Books or whatever, but I'll gladly read them again. I'm sure that I will enjoy this. I'm sure that I will. It's grim. I won't enjoy the tidings, but I will enjoy the writing. Then we have something that I have shown you before. I want to praise this again. This is David Carradine. This may very well be his last book. And this is a little biography of Queen Elizabeth II. I don't have it in front of me here. I have 3 copies of it, thanks to mistakes from the publisher. I have 3 copies of the thing. But it's a little thing. It's a little hardcover. It's not long at all. It would take you an hour to read. And ordinarily, when I see something like that for a figure that I consider to be major, I'm a little disappointed. But oh man, Carradine gets so much into those pages. This is so good as a biography of the Queen that I read it now. I got the advanced copy, and I read that, and then I got a hardcover, a little purple hardcover, and I read that. It doesn't take long at all to do. And then I got like days later, I got a second hardcover, and I read it again anyway because I enjoyed it so much. So this does count. I just did recently read it. I do very much recommend it. Then we have something by Lovell Holder. I can't remember if this is a debut or not. This is fiction, and it's for the gays. You got to have something for the gays. This is the Book of Luke, in which I haven't read it, but I gather that the premise is something along the lines of Survivor, where our main character is a young hottie when he is on a show like Survivor with a whole cast of people, and it makes him momentarily famous, and he has high exposure. Then he leaves it, goes on to his normal life, and has a rocky love life. And in the need for money, a substantial paycheck, but also in the need maybe to recapture youth or a time of possibility, he does one of those reunions of Survivor that they were regularly doing, where they'll bring back popular old stars. I don't know those shows very well, and I'm wondering how much of it I will need to know, how much of the feeling of them I will need to have to really get this. I'm hoping not. That would be a very poor choice on the author's part, if I needed to be plugged in to the Survivor world to get the book. I'm hoping that's not true, but we will see. I'm assuming that when he goes back for this reunion on this show, he finds true love. I'm assuming that will be true. And then we have something from the French, translated by Alison Duncan. The author is Jean Lelouf, and it is What Did Dinosaurs Think About? Which we can't know. Right off the top, you want to admit that. We can't know that. We don't know if dinosaurs contemplated, for instance, anything. We don't know if any of them ever looked up at the stars. Just for the fun of it. Just to appreciate the beauty. Did any of them ever do that? We can't know anything about that. But we know an enormous amount about their brains. You wouldn't think so, because brains are soft tissue. They don't fossilize. But you would be amazed at what new technology can do to get us a little closer to understanding dinosaur brains, which doesn't get us much closer to what they thought about. But you get the point. You get the gimmick. I imagine that this will be basically a recounting of all of that technology, of some of the finds of dinosaur brain pans and whatnot. I'm assuming that this will be a recounting of all that. I don't know when it was written. I'm hoping that it's fairly recent, that it was translated fairly recently. And it doesn't matter ultimately anyway, because I am such a sucker for dinosaur books that I'm sure there'll be something in here that I will like. I'm sure there will be. So those are some books for a Friday Reads, and I thought we would finish up with a few other miscellaneous items, like, for instance, comics, which definitely count. They're written. I can read them. That counts for Friday Reads. There's this, a facsimile edition of Justice League of America number 21, where you have the Justice League peering through the dimensional barrier to team up with the Justice Society, the earlier super team. This is at a time when they were separated. They were in alternate worlds, but not really, not the same world. DC Comics has tried ever since to make that there's only one reality. There aren't any alternate worlds. So the Justice Society served during World War II. The Justice League serves much later in the same world. But this is an adventure that has the two teams teaming up, so we get introduced to them, and they have an adventure together. This Mike Sikowski artwork where all of his people have the same body, and you can see right away that in this era, the Justice League overpowers the Justice Society comically because of the lineup that the writer. Do we have a writer here? Don't know that it would even be listed. No. Well, Gardner Fox maybe, but the writer chose to give us this lineup: the Atom, the original Atom, who's just short. That's his superpower, is that he's short and tough. Our Man, who can take a pill that gives him super strength for an hour. Green Lantern, who has a magic ring that can do anything that he wants it to do, unless he directs it towards wood. It doesn't work on wood. Black Canary, who's a tough broad. Dr. Fate, who is a sorcerer, and Hawkman, who has wings and antique weaponry. Just an ordinary man who has wings and antique weaponry. And then you have the Justice League. Superman, who can juggle planets. the Martian Manhunter, who has almost Superman level strength, Wonder Woman, who has almost Superman level strength. You have a Green Lantern, who has a science-based ring that can do anything that he wants and is vulnerable to yellow, not wood. You have the Justice League's Atom, who is actually tiny, a normal man who can shrink to tiny size. You have Batman, Green Arrow, and Aquaman. So a much more powerful team. But here they face a whole bunch of Justice Society villains, and I like these old facsimiles. They give you everything. They give you not just the issue, but all of the ads, everything that was in here, which is, I think, is just fun. It's just a lot of fun. And also another comic book, another floppy comic book. This is Conan the Barbarian, number 26, from Titan Comics. It's a terrific cover, and I have just quietly started reading Conan the Barbarian and the Savage Sword of Conan, and also Conan Reforged, a reprint comic. I've just quietly started reading these things because they're so reliably good. And the reason that I sound so surprised is because my review of Savage Sword of Conan from Titan Books was not exactly gentle. Savage Sword of Conan number 1, I thought, was a complete and total failure. But boy, oh boy, things have improved since then. Now, I was waiting for the previous storyline in Conan the Barbarian to be over. A misstep on the part of Titan Books. They took the short story, the Frost Giant's Daughter, and not only made it into like 50 issues lasting 10 years, but also gave the Frost Giant's Daughter interiority and a badass take-charge girl boss backstory. It was just totally ridiculous. That was why I thought Titan Books Conan would fail just in general, because of that, the infection of identity politics. I thought that would it'll destroy Conan before it'll destroy anything else, and it certainly destroyed the first issue of Savage Sword of Conan. But Patrick Zurcher seems to have learned his lesson, seems to have steered away from that pretty quick. He seems, in other words, to have listened to his fans, who wrote to him in droves and said, do not do that to Conan. If you're under corporate orders to do that for everything else, fine, but this is a franchise book. Surely that gives you some leeway. Do not do that for Conan. And he has not. So these issues have been really, really good. And this is the start of a new storyline. This is The Implausible General. This is The Conquering Crown, Part 1. Look at that. Look at that frontispiece. Look at all those drunken wenches sound asleep. There's Conan at the pinnacle of them. That's just wonderful. That's just wonderful. So this is artwork by Fernando Dagnino. Jim Zub does the writing, and it's Fernando Dagnino who does the artwork. And I guess he does. Look at that. You've got chickens pecking at people. You've got flagons of mead overflowing. Everyone's drunk and besotted. That is wonderful. This is going to be a lot of fun to read. I gave a wide berth to the Frost Giant's Daughter. Frost Giant's badass, don't need no man daughter. But I, generally speaking, have been loving this book. So, and then the other X factor that we can deal with here at the end is mail. Nobody's watching at the end of the video anyway, so I'm free to do what I want. So let's open a couple of packages and see if these shoulder aside anything for tonight. I went to the Brattle Bookshop this morning, and as always when I go to the Brattle Bookshop, at least one of the books that I get that day, I'm going to read that night. And I've got a couple of frontline contenders here, but a new book will always take precedence over an older book. There'll always be time to read older books. So let's see what we have here. Oh, well, okay. Well, this one's out of the running because it's next year, but this looks interesting. This is by Josh Ireland, and it is called The Death of Trotsky, the true story of the plot to kill Stalin's greatest enemy. I don't know what that photo is. Is that photo really important? Is that like the last photo of Trotsky that there ever was? I don't know. But what have we got? Have we got pub sheet of any kind here? No. So this comes out in February. Let's see here. On August 20th, 1940, Leon Trotsky invited a man he knew only as Jacques Mornard into his study. Mornard waited for Trotsky to sit, then smashed an ice pick he had hidden in his raincoat into Trotsky's skull. For over a decade, Trotsky's greatest enemy, Joseph Stalin, had been trying to arrange his murder. Stalin's agents had hunted him across Europe and into a lonely, bitter exile in Mexico. He had liquidated Trotsky's family and friends, and yet Trotsky had always escaped his clutches. The man who changed this all was Ramon Mercader, a minor Spanish aristocrat and Soviet agent who had posed as Mornard, a dissolute Belgian playboy, and infiltrated Trotsky's inner circle. In this book, the author traces the separate paths walked by each of these protagonists as they steadily draw closer and closer to that fateful encounter on August 20. Okay, well, I don't know much about this, so that would be a lot of fun, but not tonight. And then we have a box. Let's see what the box is. The box could increase the odds because boxes tend to be finished copies, and a finished copy won't be next year, so they'll increase the odds of something that can go on the pile for tonight. Let's see. It's wedged in here pretty tight, whatever it is. So this could be a finished copy. Let's get all this junk out of here. Let's see. Oh, it is. Yeah, this is a finished copy. Okay. Oh, okay, great. All right. Let's put you over here. So what have we got? This comes out in December, I believe. Yeah, December 2nd, so not that far away. This is John Darnielle. This is his new book this year. 365 songs annotated. Lovely embossed cover there. You can't really make it out in the black and white. It's a whole lot nicer in hardcover than it was in the advanced copy that we saw. Okay, so this got a starred review from Kirkus. And it comes out on the 2nd of December. What is this? For more than 3 decades, John Darnielle has, through his work with his band, the Mountain Goats, built his reputation as one of the most consistent, prolific, admired, and generally excellent songwriters in the world of indie music. With this book, he brings together 365 song lyrics from his impressive catalog, spanning from the early 1990s when he worked as a psychiatric nurse at a state hospital in California and was recording his vivid songs into a boombox in his spare time, to the band's acclaimed recent albums. These songs cover a vast and diverse terrain, but they're united by his unique perspective, vision, and feel for narrative. Okay, so ideally I would want a Mountain Goats fan to review this book. That would be ideal. That's impossible, but that would be ideal. Impossible because in order for a Mountain Goats fan to review this book, well, it wouldn't be impossible. They could buy it on December 2nd. The review I'm talking about would be for Open Letters Review, the online literary journal where I'm one of the editors. And ideally you would write a review of this for me at Open Letters Review. And I guess it's not impossible because you could buy this book. The impossible thing would be for me to send you this copy, since you don't know where you live. So I can't send you anything. But someone could buy it and still review it in time, especially if they were a big fan. Well, yeah, this is going to be $36 on the 2nd of December. I really like end papers there. I'm sure that refers to a song. I'm sure that refers to song lyrics. Is that the same? No, the back is different. The back is also a different picture. Very nice. A very nice hardcover edition here. I like this author. I read his... I've read 2 of his novels, Universal Harvester and especially Wolf and White Van. I love both of them. This, I don't know. I don't know the Mountain Goats at all. I don't know any of their songs, so I don't know that I would be the right person to review this. So it would theoretically be a fit for tonight's reading pile, but it does not edge out Hawthorne and Emerson. so there you go. So that is a nice big Friday reads full of stuff. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.